And we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of people found disturbing in the last Oscar Awards that just came. That was about a week ago, I think. It was a week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
You go.
there was one movie that was a what's it called again? The uh, when it's a
Um,
realistic.
yeah.
It's a
It's
what's
called
the
a
word? It's
We'll go into that.
a
it's called
document
a
a
documentary.
Right.
documentary, right?
Yeah.
It's called a documentary movie. It was made in collaboration with and I always use the term so-called Palestinian, because as far as I'm concerned, there is no such thing as a genuine Palestinian. But be that as it may, a Palestinian and what I would believe to be an extreme leftist Israeli. The name of the movie was Bela.
No
My
other
head is
land. Okay. Let me
no
take
other
this
land.
away.
Thank you. Pardon me, ladies and gentlemen, but my head is a little bit asleep because I have been in Albany all day and I was up early in the morning and I drove both ways, so I'm a little bit out. Now, what is controversial, of course, is the fact that I believe that much of what this documentary spoke about and the stories given, correct, were misinformation, clearly distortions of reality. So I would like, we brought on Jackie Rosenbaum, famous actress, and she's been involved in the Hollywood scene. She's been involved in SAG, and she's been involved in Oscars and different award ceremonies. She's seen it. She's familiar with what goes on, how this comes to be. So, Bela, if I may, I'm passing the baton to you now to get the conversation going so that people can hear you and
Absolutely.
Jackie. Okay,
Absolutely. Okay.
please.
Thank you for me. History Israel. In other words, Israelis are the bad guys. They are given and not only that, but they are given as much time as they needed to talk. Everyone
Well,
gets a time limit. When they receive an award, everyone gets a time limit. They were given as much time as they needed to talk. So my question is, why were they given so long to talk when everyone else was cut off? I'll answer that question before I introduce our guest. They were given so much time while others were cut off because that's how corruption works. This is an outrage. With us tonight to
this is
discuss this issue is actress Jacqueline Rosenbaum. Jacqueline is best known for playing Beth in the movies Twitches and Twitches 2, as well as the role of Katie in Disney's In a Heartbeat. Most recently, she can be seen in the films Set Me Free and Forever One, and the third movie in this series is currently in pre-production. Welcome, Jacqueline.
welcome, Jackie, and I look forward to you getting your first Oscar. I
Yes,
think that
Jackie,
Bela,
I want to start off by asking you. A Palestinian documentary about the Israeli occupation took home the Oscar for Best Documentary. It sparked widespread debate. The State of Palestinians' official X account quickly celebrated the victory, calling on the world to take serious actions to stop the injustice and to stop ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. It's an outrage. I want your professional take on this. What do you think about that?
Okay, so first of all, um, the truth is, I was never, even when I was working for, full time as an actress in the scene, doing all this stuff. The truth is, I wasn't really so into the whole like awards show scene. I just wasn't personally. It's just not what drew me. Like even when people in my early career, like people would ask me, who are your influences and as an actor, even like who are your acting, and the truth is I didn't think about that. I got into it, like, I mean, I loved acting since I was a little kid. I waited till I was 18 to get an agent, and that's when I booked, the Disney In a Heartbeat, and when I started working. And I didn't, that's not how I thought. So I was like, why would I get now, it's a silly question, question, but how I looked at it naturally when I was getting into it was like, why would I study another actor if I want to be an actor? I need to study reality. I need to like people, myself, you know what I'm saying? Like I
Right.
remember one day I got really mad, when I was what was I 13 or 14, and I remember I was so genuinely mad, but I remember like watching myself in the car window reflection to see like, wow, what do I look like when I'm really mad? You know what I'm saying? Like that was going on like some sort of like level. That's what I was interested in personally, right? So I was,
But Jackie,
please,
in all
yes.
these years since you have been in the Hollywood scene, you have been enmeshed in it. You are
Well,
in it.
Well, what I would say also is most of the Hollywood productions that I was in were shot in Toronto, which was known, especially at the time, as Hollywood North. It might still be
Oh.
as, but that was, do you know what I'm saying? So I spent a little bit of time in LA, a little bit, but I never, like the truth is, again, a lot of my friends who were also working actors, right, in Canada, they would back in the day, what was the thing to do apparently was they would go and live in LA for 3 months, for January, February, March. They would move to LA because that was pilot season, and it was like the very like specific time that all the networks were casting their pilots for the year, whatever, that would shoot over the summer and see what gets picked up. So then the idea was that if you book a pilot, right, because let's say you couldn't work legally in America if you're a Canadian actor, but if they want you for their pilot, then the network pays for your visa and your, you know what I'm saying, and you can work as an actor because that's your home, however you say that in English, like that's your field, right? Sort of external either way, not from a
Mm-hmm.
Jewish perspective, 'cause I didn't know there was anything wrong with it from a Jewish perspective. There wasn't, maybe, right? And
No,
not
Right.
from
not
an
that
actor
feeling.
perspective. Like, oh, this is what the actors are doing, so you have to do this also. This is what it means. Like because I'm an actress, that means, oh, I want to win an Oscar. Yeah, of course, everybody would want. Like, I just wasn't thinking about it. Of course, everybody wants to be recognized in their field, right? Whatever their field is, and whether it's in front of an audience or not, getting
Right.
recognized for excellence in your field, of course, that's going to be an aspiration in general. But it wasn't the kind of thing I was thinking. Wasn't what was motivating me. And I don't think that's what motivates like any sincere person who's pursuing any career, whether it's, law or accounting or acting or whatever you're doing. If it's really what you want to do, that's you should do it because it's what you want to do. Now I only realized that in hindsight, but thank God, and that I was able to do that. I also had a supportive family who was okay with, okay, if you want to try to do this, if you're happy, we're happy, whatever. And luckily also I didn't realize the potential implications that some people would try to say, oh, that's so irresponsible because of this and that. So luckily I didn't have those barriers, and I was actually able to do it before I even realized that like that what risks I was potentially taking, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that was
Let
very,
me,
very blessed.
now that you've made the ample amount of distances and
Um,
excuses, or whatever you want to
the
call
point is,
them,
what I'm trying to say is
Jackie,
I'm not trying to come as an authority on the Oscars or the Hollywood scene. That's what I want
okay.
to say.
But
Just because
I still believe that you have a great deal of knowledge
okay.
as to what does happen, what goes on, and how it goes on the background.
Hmm.
When I saw little clips of what happened, to me, it just seems to reinforce
Hmm.
what I believe is DEI in Hollywood, extreme super liberalism, leftism. All these things seem to be absorbed. Jackie, whenever I turn on the TV today
Hmm.
and I watch a TV show,
Hmm.
in the olden days when I was growing up, and I'm not a youngster, I'm well into my 50s, and we'll leave it at that. I'm
Hmm.
probably old enough to be your dad, Jackie. But anyway, when I was watching TV,
Uh-huh.
a family meant mom, dad, male dad, female mom,
Yeah.
and
Those
children.
days are long gone.
Every single program or movie that I open up to today has to have at least one gay or lesbian couple, broken homes, something what that is antithetical to what we believe was, and what I still believe is right, and what is godly, and what is the way it was written in the book. So this is a deep ingrained problem in Hollywood. not only that, I just saw a movie yesterday, the other Saturday night with my nephew, Captain America. And look, I have some African American dear friends that I'm very close to, clients. I have a friend that's a bishop. I'm really very. Yet I and my nephew, both of us, seem to come to one. We agree on one thing, and we don't understand it.
Hmm.
Captain America was always a white man. Why did Captain America have to be made suddenly into a black man? This is
Well,
DEI in Hollywood at work as well. Why couldn't it just remain the same? Why,
well,
I mean, it seems like a reverse discrimination. I'm sorry, Jack.
no,
I'm
no.
giving it back to you now. Yeah,
I hear the question. I'm happy
yeah,
to address them actually. They're
please.
right. So first of all, I'll go in opposite order, which is not what we're supposed to do. But the truth is, in terms of the last one, I didn't see Captain America the movie, but yeah, I've heard of the character. But I think what the question they're trying to address is, it's a reason. I understand your question, which is saying Captain America was drawn in the comic books and in the whatever, and he was always white. Why does he now have to be black? But the question, the reason I think is because the question they're asking is, why did he have to be white? Do you know what I'm saying? He's a character, and
That's
back in the
interesting.
day,
That's an
absolutely,
interesting take on it.
he absolutely didn't.
But
And
Jackie, who said he had to be white? He just happened to be white at the time when he was
right,
created. You can
exactly.
create a new superhero and you can create him black from the get-go. I
I
don't
understand.
understand.
So I'm sure. So I'm saying, back in the day, the
Mhm.
um the default was that regular people on TV, right, were white.
Right.
Also not Jewish, also not whatever. They just were. It was just the
Right.
default
I
in,
mean,
in
if you
North
look at all the
America.
old family shows, they were all,
Absolutely.
most of them
And
were
right,
white. I mean,
right.
later on
And
was the Jeffersons and,
well, I was gonna go there
good
actually.
times.
And also the Cosby Show and everything. But they were
Cosby
like,
Show.
okay,
Yeah.
there was the black family shows,
Hmm.
regular family shows, I'll even go as far to say, because
Right.
that's
It's interesting.
norm
That's right.
then.
That's,
And
yeah.
I don't think that's a problem personally. I don't mind that because the thing is, it's not like Captain America was a historical figure, you know what I'm saying? That now they're culturally appropriating. He's a made-up character. And because the fashion or the default or whatever happened to have been that everyone was just white, just you don't think about it, nobody was Asian, you're not even talking, you know what I'm saying? Nobody was any other nationality. I don't personally see a problem with that because that is saying, wait a second, just because he was drawn white in what, the 50s, the 30s, the 60s, I don't know, whenever that was, there's no reason why he had to be. And the truth is, he still represents whoever's the actor that best represents that character. He could be black, he could be white, he could be Asian, he could be
I,
Filipino. Do you know what I'm
I'll
saying?
give you that, Jackie, but it just seems odd and to suddenly change that. It's
I
like all
understand.
the Supermans till now have been white.
Okay.
Next time they come out with a new Superman film, all of a sudden Superman is going to be black. So it must be done that way.
Well, clearly not must because it was only with this one character. So why is it? Do you know what I'm saying? I
Okay.
hear your question, but I think the other question that it's answering is at least as legitimate. I personally do with this particular thing. Now, also, even with the, let's say, the nuclear regular family that used to, right, that you're saying now is like for sure we want to be open. So I think that that's also, I'm going to be very like, I don't know if it's unpopular opinion or popular, but I'm
Oh,
saying,
no, please. We speak our mind here.
thank you.
No
Good to
holds
know.
barred.
Because you
Don't
know
hold
what?
back. Don't hold back.
I I see these things and even the like as my default generally I think is dan l'chavschos. And the truth is as problematic as some of these things are, I actually see it as it's a distortion and an extreme like end, right? Of something that's actually coming from a good place. It is coming from a good place, right? It's coming
Okay.
from
Yeah.
It
place
is.
of wanting to
I'm not
accept it.
getting that.
Well, I understand. So maybe I'll see if I can make it
Please,
clear.
Jackie,
I'll
please, I'm sorry.
try.
Please,
That's
the
okay.
good place that it's coming
Okay.
from, Jackie.
Okay. So let's say, right?
Yeah.
Because what's a good value? Do you, as an Orthodox Jew or as a regular person, as a North American male, do you believe that acceptance, not of everybody's behavior, but as every person, do you think that's a good value? to accept every human being and that nobody judges except God, let's say. Can you agree with that?
Yes, by and large, if it's not pushed upon others, and if it's not,
Right.
I suppose so. And but there are certain things that I don't necessarily accept. I have an issue, for example, when there is a gay and lesbian parade right in the heart of Jerusalem, where it's the holiest city. I have issues with these things. And my friend, the bishop, a black bishop,
Mm-hmm.
has issues with these things. And I mentioned it to Eric Adams when I spoke to him. And he says, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, God made Adam and Steve. He said it's an abomination, not Adam, not Adam and
Right,
Eve,
right,
not
right.
Adam and Steve. I beg your pardon. God made
Right,
Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
right.
And he said it's an abomination for two men to be together. And if God had wanted two men to be together, he would have made it so that God would have made it so that one man could impregnate the other man in order to perpetuate our species as human beings. But he didn't. That's the reality. Therefore, to me, it's anti-biblical, anti the Judeo-Christian heritage, and anti everything that should be out there. And I think what's happening out there has gone crazy. And I applaud, by the way, President Trump, who just recently said, henceforth, in the United States of America, there will only be two genders, male and female, not some sort of, not gender refrigerator, not gender TV screen, male and female. So you want to break my head?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to rip you apart. Right? Like, let's say, when have Lashon Hara parades, do we? Do we have like a Bal Lashon Hara parade because we're proud that we speak Lashon Hara? Do you know what I'm saying? Everybody has different challenges. Just like you said, you're bringing all the I'm not gonna, you know what I'm saying? But it's to see for you who doesn't have an issue with that, right? You don't have a challenge in terms.
Oh no, not at all. My predilection is definitely for women. Bela and Sawyer can tell you that's a certain.
I believe all of it. But I'm saying, so that's why I'm saying, so it's very easy for you to say, right? That it's like, obviously, there's this and this and this proof, and why would you be proud of it? Why would you do it in Jerusalem? I'm not arguing with you, I'm not. But I'm saying that yes, it's called an abomination. So is eating shellfish. But do you know what I'm saying? But the people who eat shellfish, even Jews who eat shellfish, aren't so defensive about how, right? Like, about
okay,
their
I hear you.
and
I hear you.
also even people who consider ourselves, hopefully God-fearing Jews or wanting to do the best we can with all halachas and everything, all the laws, we're not perfect.
I don't. Yeah,
well, here's my viewpoint on the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. Finish.
Let us hear from the
okay.
international journalist.
I'm a live and let live type of person. I don't care what people do. Let them do what they want to do in the privacy of their homes. I don't care. It's none of my business what people do behind closed doors. I do have a problem with parading.
Yeah.
Your what should be private.
No,
homosexuality always existed in the biblical times. I mean, the fact is, the Gemara talks about it, so it existed. But people don't need to know what others do behind closed doors. So, years ago in the old shows, in fact, the Brady Bunch, right? The father, I forgot his name. He was gay, but nobody knew. And the Brady Bunch, oh my God, that was an all-American show.
You're saying the actor?
The actor.
Oh, okay.
The father in
the
show. I forgot.
I don't know. I never really watched it.
I'm just. The point is that the all-American family was depicted as a mother, father, children.
Sure, but the thing is,
what people did behind closed doors. That's their thing.
But the problem was, and again, this is an overcorrection, right? It's an overcorrection. But the problem was that anybody, like you said, when people found out, like people in Hollywood or people in your neighborhood, even, they would come out of the closet and they would be shunned and they would be bullied and they would be stigmatized. And sometimes they would be physically bullied. And sometimes,
That's
they
true.
weren't,
Yeah.
they weren't able to live a normal life and they were physically assaulted. And even like nowadays, like cyberbullying is becoming, they're starting to see how serious,
Yes.
not even because of homosexuality. I'm saying in general, people who are harassing other people for any reason or no
No,
reason.
for sure. Yeah.
Teenagers are killing themselves because of it, because it's
Yes.
and that's why,
Yes.
again, to bring up, let's say, lashon hara again, that's why it's such a serious halacha, because words can hurt. It's not sticks and stones may break, by those words can be very painful and powerful. So again, I'm not saying that there should be a parade glorifying any avera, okay, anything, and especially in Jerusalem. But what I can also understand is you can't be so black and white about almost anything. You can in terms of this is halacha and this is not, but you also have to recognize we all have different challenges. And for me to be, which I have been, right? There's been times I've been judgmental of other people doing things that I found easy, right? Or not even that I found easy, but that I thought that, oh, I'm overcoming this. I'm able to do that. Why can't you figure out how to do it? You know what I'm saying? And then I later had a challenge in that area because it became harder. And I was like, shoot, now I'm getting okay, I get it now.
Right. Right.
You can't know
I
what if
hear
the
what you're
person's
saying,
But
Jackie.
challenging.
you still,
Bayla,
so,
Bayla, I
but
hear what
in
both.
general, what people do behind closed doors, whether they're heterosexual or homosexual, bisexual, whatever it
Yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah.
keep it private. But even
Yeah,
if they
It's
want to
different.
bring it out
I tend to
That's
in
agree.
why I'm saying
Hollywood,
it's an
here's
overcorrection.
my
What they
problem.
want and what
Here's
they
my biggest problem.
okay.
This is the one thing no one can defend. Promoting hatred
Of
is
course.
not okay. Is not
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's where I was going,
That's
Bayla.
what
And
Let's
was
this
get
is
the
that
whole
really and
point
this
of
is
what we
really
were
what
supposed to
we're
right.
talking about tonight.
This is
exactly.
and the idea of a program showing a one-sided total
Yep.
distortion of the true facts,
Right.
winning an award. That seems
Yep.
to be where Hollywood and I'm sorry, I don't mean to say your planet or whatever. You know, you're where you come out of, whatever where you work in seems to have gone to.
Right.
That they can take a documentary which is totally false
Well,
and
Right.
give
they
it away.
distort it because, in fact, during their acceptance speech, the film's creators used the platform to make a political statement.
Right.
It reflects the harsh reality that we have been enduring for decades and still persists as we call to stop the injustice and stop the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. That's what they said, quote unquote.
Jackie, have
I
Yeah.
you
mean,
seen the
it's
movie?
crazy.
Have you seen
Nothing
it?
about
I
October
think that
7th. Nothing.
I right. I tried to see the movie actually. I tried to
Okay.
look online. I was not able to. I didn't know about it before it won the award, honestly. So I saw that it was screened here and I didn't know that. I didn't know anything about it. And when I tried to look online to view it, I wasn't able to. Do
Well,
you
I'll give
have
you
a link to
afterwards.
it?
I'll give you afterwards where you can get some
It's
of these movies
it's
right before.
anti-Israel propaganda.
Yeah,
Of
but
course, of
That's
course.
and that's not
They,
something anyone can defend. All
oh,
right,
what it
I
absolutely.
understand that they now have to promote homosexuality and because you're right, there's been a lot of cyberbullying and physical assault. Okay, all right, I hear that point and I get it, but that where relates to hate. You
right.
don't ignite hate.
Bayla, now that you mentioned that, and I've got you both here, Bayla and Jackie, of course. Can either one of you give us an example of something that the movie demonstrated or attempted to demonstrate and was a clear distortion of the fact? I think both of you may have mentioned the idea of some sort of a genocide or an ethnic cleansing.
Well, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so they were showing something that was absolutely false.
Many things.
All right, many things. Give us a few examples. I want our listeners to know how they went about doing this, what they did.
Right. So,
I would think when you mentioned ethnic cleansing, there has never been what's distorted about that particular thing is that, in fact, there has never been any form of ethnic cleansing in Israel, by
Right.
Israel, in any part of Israel. Israel is not ethnically cleansing Gaza. Israel is the only nation in the world that was attacked the way it was. And while it is counter striking and at war, which it should be, because no other nation in the world would tolerate something like the horrors of October 7th, no other nation in the
But
world would still have its army and its soldiers going in and giving them leaflets and notes and moving
right,
them and giving them aid and everything else to keep the so-called civilians, and I don't even believe they're civilians when the vast majority supported Hamas, to protect them, keep them alive, keep them healthy, while fighting the enemy that did something like
so
that did
right.
what that did what
So
they did on October 7th. That is a complete
but that
distortion
what
of
they
fact.
but what they distorted in the picture, yes, they did. There was no mention of October 7th, but what they did in distorting reality is that no other land is a documentary that delves into the experiences of Palestinians in Judea and Samaria, particularly focusing on the village of Masafer Yatta.
Well, let's take a second, Judea and Samaria. If I recall, I don't have this in front of
I
me.
mean, it captures
There are
what they
three,
did
the
was
Judea and Samaria, which is referred to as the West Bank, okay, has three areas. They're divided into area A, B, and C, or something like that. Three areas. There is an area which is kind of a neutral kind of area. There's an area that's exclusive to Palestinians. There's an area for Israeli Jews.
Mhm.
Now, I have never heard, I lived there for 3 years myself in Israel. I practiced law in Israel for 3 years. One of the bosses that I worked for was a Muslim, a partner in a major Israeli law firm.
Mhm.
And this was totally integrated. And I had seen no such thing other than complete integration, and Palestinians, Israeli, Muslims, Arabs of all kinds living happily on the best possible level of living, style of life that they could have anywhere
well,
else in the entire Middle East,
that's
their own
not what they
countries.
want to portray to the world. Clearly, that's
Yeah.
not what they want to
Well,
portray to the world.
and I have not yet heard of a case either where Israelis in Judea and Samaria have unprovokedly shot or attacked Arabs in Judea and Samaria. It has never happened.
Right,
But you hear on a regular basis, on the other hand, you hear
so
just the
but
opposite.
they claim differently. That's the problem, and that's how they're convincing the world.
And therein lies the distortion. And this is what something that has been done. This is their propaganda.
Right.
This is their modus operandi.
Well,
This is
yeah,
the way they do it. And they have a vastly funded operation,
well,
funded,
yes.
unfortunately, by even entities that have even Jews involved in the funding, which is horrible and sickening. But
Well,
you're
yeah.
right,
I mean,
Bela. They should not get away with
Yuval
this.
Abraham is very much a Jew.
Right, Jackie, am I right?
And what he did was, I mean, this film captures the period from 2019 to 2023, and it highlights what they want to show. They highlight the challenges allegedly
It
faced
highlights
by residents done to Israeli military actions and settler activities.
Bela,
It's crazy. There was no mention about anything having to do with October 7th, and that's not okay.
Bela, it created a fictional fairy tale about what goes on to display them as honest, helpless civilians who are victimized by the Israelis. This is the issue. Hollywood, your industry, shouldn't, Jackie, I'm sorry, I don't mean you to put it on you particularly, but as a movie star, Jackie, but your industry.
So basically,
and there
what
are
they
so
did
many
was like
Jews
this.
in your industry.
Absolutely.
How could they allow this, let alone give this kind of a distortion, a total
I'll tell you why.
Like this, a
I'll tell you why.
How can this become?
I'll tell you what they did. I'll tell you how they did it, because this is a documentary. So the town has heavy security, but they don't mention anything about October 7th. That's why I keep saying they didn't mention anything about October 7th, 2023, or why the town has to have such heavy security presence. So they're showing that there's military, there's these people can't live in peace, but they're not explaining why there's heavy security presence. That's where the distortion comes in.
Well, they say the same thing with Gaza. They were not free to come in and out because they had to have their IDs inspected, identification. But you know something? Who wouldn't, considering that they're lopping bombs at you every Monday and Thursday nonstop? You've got to check and make sure there are no terrorists or people that are going to go attack your Israeli citizens. Jackie, what has happened out there in Hollywood? What has happened to your industry that they can award an Oscar to a total disinformation documentary and get away with this? What's going on there, Jackie?
So I think that even beyond just this movie, like even when you were saying, what are the facts that are not really facts? The truth is, it's especially since October 7th, of course, because that's when this has become more of a, discussion and conversation with a lot of people. What I'm unfortunately noticing is that the facts, the people who don't want to know the facts, they're just not going to accept them. And the problem is that it's the manipulative, like, propagandists
Yes.
on that side are
I like
so,
that. I like that. Yeah,
they
manipulative
are.
propaganda. I like
And
that.
and the
That's
thing
exactly
is,
what it is.
it's exactly what it is. And also, so what I'm thinking is the way to address that is not even to pick apart. I mean, look, the facts are important. So people who want to know the facts, they're there. There are many people and many organizations who are putting them out there very eloquently, very unequivocally. You know what I'm saying? Now, sometimes they work, that people who are on the other side or who weren't sure, people who are sincerely want to know, they can know, and they're probably going to be open-minded enough to know. Some people, unfortunately, had to see, I mean, once they saw footage of the atrocities on October 7th, their eyes were opened and they were like, okay, that's not okay. Like, humans don't do that. There's no excuse for that. It doesn't actually matter what they say, did, and caused them to do. Because the problem is the intellectual distortions that they're emotionally manipulating people, and that's it. And that's the same thing that the movie industry is about, emotions, right? People want to go to a movie to get enwrapped in the, the
Right.
fourth
Right.
wall disappear, and they want to cry,
Yes.
and they want to experience everything that they either don't get to or don't want to or don't whatever experience in their life. They want to be taken on a journey, and they want to,
Yes.
okay. Now, sometimes also things that are like, if I see something, if I see a movie and then I'm like, is this based on a true story? Like, let's say,
Right. That's how you know it's a good movie.
not only that, but it makes it better. If it's, let's say, made up, it's like, okay, that's interesting. But if it's based on a true story, it does add a depth. Let's say for me, it for sure adds a depth of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening, or wow, that's amazing, or like all these things for sure. Now, the other problem, and you can correct me, anybody can correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not on the Oscar committee, but my understanding is, let's say, right, are the Oscars actually fact checking documentaries? If I make a movie and I submit it as a documentary, are they really fact checking? They're not going to. The guy who made the movie about that he ate McDonald's every day, did I go and see the doctor that he said, oh, if you continue this, you're going to die? Did I go and check his medical degree? Did I go see, oh, did he really
Right.
go? Who's Day March 8th or whatever? Nobody checks. You accept that this is what they're doing and this is the
Right.
reason. You're not fact checking it. So that's the first thing, that anybody who thinks that the fact that it won an Oscar of a documentary legitimizes it as a documentary, that's simply false. It's just false because they
Right.
submitted it as a documentary and they're an artistic entity, right?
Jackie,
Right.
you're right. People don't
Right.
know that
Right.
out
I
there.
know, because they don't think
Doesn't the industry have some responsibility
responsibility.
to at least
So
You would
notify the
think.
people, say something to the effect, look, this is a documentary based upon one side of a story, which may or may not be factual. We give the Oscar based on what we seem to be the most entertaining, the most moving, the
compelling,
most emotional. Right, right,
yeah.
exactly.
Mhm.
But this does not mean that we are endorsing the
Right.
veracity of what is the content of the movie that we're giving. Shouldn't the industry have some responsibility to the general public, as do public officials have?
Oh, I
as the
see.
media should have.
I was going to ask
So
him.
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
Yeah, because I want to add to that, but go ahead.
Well, the thing is, listen, there's the same problem with actual, news programs and journalists and whatever. So how, of course, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not gonna police those, which we can't apparently now, right? Because they do newspaper headlines, they intentionally, it can't be unintentional, maybe intentional, but the way that they word things is clearly missing information or missing or like, intentionally biased to give a particular impression to the otherwise uninformed person who has no other way of getting their information. So
Our
I think
president's fake news. He's right.
that, exactly. But that's why I think that the bigger issue is the their manipulation tactics in general, and why are they getting the hearts and the funds and the whatever of so many people who I truly believe a lot of them do believe that they're doing the right thing. I
Oh
really
yeah.
believe that.
Oh yeah.
A lot of
They
people say that they're just using it as a cover. They just hate Jews, and now
no
they
no
have an
no. They believe it.
I
They
don't think
believe what
so
they're
at all.
saying.
Exactly. And I understand, because if I didn't know anything about the situation, and what you hear is the loudest voice, right? And the thing is, so what I was thinking is, look, a lot of those people hopefully have never, let's say, been in or witnessed, let's say, an abusive relationship. Okay. The way that I like to look at things, even when I think of, let's say, even from a religious point of view, when we talk about, oh, God's relationship with us, how am I supposed to understand that? Okay, let me bring it down to a person to person level. Does this make sense in a person to person level? Okay, then I can expand that. So let's say this is a huge, it's the propaganda industry is what's the huge industry. That's what has the responsibility, but that they're not going to take. The problem is, I don't think there's a point attacking the industry. I mean, maybe what they're going to take back the Oscar. Okay, great. That's going to legitimize. No, that's going to make them do louder protests. Like, who cares? They're going to do what they're going to do anyway. It's not going to help. In the same way that, do you know how many articles? Almost every, I've had, let's say, a couple of articles, a couple of, let's say, publications have written articles where they interviewed me and then they made the article, whatever. And myself, in all of my experiences, and also other people who I've spoken to, almost every single one has had mistakes in them. You know what I'm saying? Things taken out of context. I don't know if it's on purpose or not. Probably not. They have
Right.
deadlines. They have a lot of, let's just first again be done that it's hard to pump out deadlines and be totally accurate. There's going to be inaccuracies. Now, what happens, whether it's accurate or whether it's intentional or not, whenever there's an apology, it's like somewhere tucked away. Let's say there was a huge wrong headline in the Saturday whatever,
Right
and
on the
everybody
Times
thought
cover. Yeah.
exactly. And then 3 weeks later, there's a little apology tucked away in a corner on the third page of the eighth section in an editorial, whatever. Okay, so they admitted it, but that's not getting the attention. So
No.
that's already okay. So let's say I agree with you when you said, listen, let's point out all the mistakes, let's point out all the lies, let's put the context, right, into the movie so that the listeners can understand what the context is. What I feel like I would rather do is zoom out to the big picture. This is a small, like, symptom of the bigger picture, which is, again, they're trying every avenue to legitimize themselves. And of course, the Oscars is an excellent avenue to legit, right? If somebody wins an Oscar, then I can be like, look, nobody can tell me I'm not a good actor. I won an Oscar, I could tank in my next movie, God forbid, you know what I'm saying? Like, anything could happen because you need to keep showing up and do the work, right? But it's like, if you won an Oscar, that does say something about your talent and
That's
ability.
right. That's right.
Sure.
As
So
far as fact checking is concerned, so you would think they would fact check, but where they're checking for facts they're not checking for facts in the places where we want them to check for facts. The places they're checking for facts actually represents the Palestinian view. That's the problem.
well, I don't know if they're even checking for those facts. They're just saying they're the people who made the movie. I mean, was there a documentary from the Israeli side that was submitted? I don't know. That would be a more
I
interesting
don't. That would
bunch
be
of
a good question.
Well,
exactly.
And
Maybe
if
there
it
Jackie,
could be one by
would it
next
be
year.
accepted?
And
That's the
year,
question
next
too.
year.
And I'm
Jackie
sure there will
Baylor,
be. with time.
ladies, I hear what you're both saying, and what I meant to say is not necessarily fact checking in advance of doing. What I meant to say is maybe some form of disclaimer as to at the Oscar itself, when the Oscar is being announced, somebody should say, "Look, we give the Oscar, ladies and gentlemen, based upon the entertainment value of the program. We don't give an Oscar even to a documentary. It does not mean we endorse the documentary or we somehow support and say that this is true or not true. Shouldn't there be at least some sort of disclaimer by the industry publicly saying, look, here's what we're giving the Oscar for. We are not, again, endorsing the picture, or we are not necessarily saying that the movie is, that the documentary that's laid out as it is telling the truth or not truth, or it's not distort, something to that effect.
It's very interesting because this is actually the first time that I've now critically thought about any documentary that I've watched, right? You watch a documentary and you say, wow, I guess they did their research, they did the whatever, and that's the story. I never thought to fact check it. That is the fact checking, right? Making a documentary is going deep into the issues. I never, you know what I'm saying? Because where does it stop? How is it even possible? How is it even possible?
But I'm not talking about the producer. I am talking about the industry that is giving out the award.
Okay,
they're not giving the award based on, we are not, ladies and gentlemen, this award is an award for a documentary film. It may be believed to be true, the facts set forth in the film by those that made it. We don't give the award based upon a fact checking, and we don't endorse or say that these facts are true or not true. We give the award based on how touching it is and how the acting was done and whatever else are the criteria for the award. So, and that's what it's all about. And that would be a disclaimer by the industry. And
they don't do that. So,
that.
I mean,
why shouldn't they do?
I have two questions in no particular order. First of all, let's say it was an Israeli perspective film that won that documentary and they made such a disclaimer. We would be having the same podcast about what an outrage that is for them to say that, to disclaim it. Because by saying that, absolutely.
No, Jackie.
Because by saying that, you're exactly saying that it's not true.
No, Jackie. If they did it with if it was routinely done with every documentary, and it was stated as a fact that every documentary, this does not mean that we support or that we say that we agree with the facts set forth. If they did it to all, nobody would be able to complain. Anyway.
I think it's more of a buyer beware issue. And I don't think like ranting and raving about the Oscars. That's what I think. Again, I'm trying to get to the point of, let's say you're talking to the listeners. We're not talking to the Oscars, right? It's not going to help. Listen to what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, we should get someone from the Oscar committee on the show.
But it doesn't matter either, because that's still not going to help. The people that you're trying to reach are not going to be swayed by that anyway.
That's true. You're right.
Put that aside and talk about what's actually an individual who is the slightest bit open-minded, who can kind of understand the meta of what people are saying. Like, let's say context, okay? Context is a big issue in this movie. Let's zoom out, okay? Now, the big controversy since October 7th regarding the word context was what? Was with the women, the Israeli innocent citizens who, even if Israel was created by colonization, which it wasn't, but let's say even if it was, let's not even address that. The Israeli teenagers and young women who were raped and brutalized, not even talking about murdered and mutilated other people, not even just this one issue. That's what was talked about when the women's leaders were asked, do you condone this? How are you okay with it? Aren't you for all women? Aren't you believe women? Aren't you whatever? And they said, well, but there's context. So there's context.
And the Me Too movement, didn't say a word.
Right.
It's unbelievable.
Okay. So
the double standard. It's okay to rape Jewish women. That's okay.
And the other,
because it's conflict. It's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling that this is going on at this point in time,
and that people think that that's justified. Now, even
they think it's okay.
Exactly,
and that's the problem,
right?
And so that's what we're fighting for,
right?
Jackie, number two, Jackie.
They're dictating what that only their side deserves context and the Israeli side doesn't. So any
Right.
individual who's honestly just listening with half a brain, honestly, can tell that that's what's going on. They're saying, oh, the context is that Israel kicked us out or whatever. Oh, what about the fact that if Israel was ethnically cleansing Arabs, why would 20% of their population be Arab citizens, Muslim Arabs with completely equal rights in every way? In with they have voting rights. They're in the Knesset, which is the parliament.
They're in the Supreme Court.
In the Supreme
They
Court.
are
They have,
physicians, lawyers,
oh
everything.
yeah,
Right.
doctors,
Right.
and they
Doctors.
have even parties. Israel, what other country in the world has a party that their platform is destroy Israel? But Israel, like, well, we're a democracy, so you can. Do you know what
Right.
I'm saying? So another cognitive like distortion that I understand that they say, um, like you were talking about earlier, the leaflets, right? That again, the Israeli army, it's a fact. It's an easily checkable fact. Ask any military expert, anybody who has any knowledge in the industry,
The most humane army in the history of mankind.
beyond. They're
Beyond.
doing it all, right? To combatant casualty is objectively the lowest.
Lowest.
It's objectively. Now, if you hear that, it sounds too, if you hear that from coming from an echo chamber where you're told that no, even more victims are going to say it was the most humane.
Message.
Jackie,
Thank you.
I know we're coming. Jackie, if I may, I want to keep in touch with you. That's okay. May I, Jackie? After the show. I mean,
Absolutely.
not tonight, but I
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
not.
yeah.
And I wanted to also ask you, Jackie, I still want to see if we can reach into the industry a little bit.
Yeah.
Is there any way you might be able to get us maybe for a future program, perhaps Steven Spielberg or somebody that can join us on one of our podcasts?
You know what?
I'd like to nail somebody like that and see what we
Right.
can do.
About, let's say,
Maybe you give it some thought.
the Oscar angle, you do want to address that and say what's going on, what's wrong with the industry.
Yeah, and I want to address the extreme left in Hollywood
Right.
on the
Okay.
whole.
I'll
So
see what
if
I can
you
do.
give it some thought, maybe you can arrange something in the future.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, please wrap it up for us.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Jacqueline. You're absolutely incredible. I'd be incredible when I invited you to join the show.
I
Your
can say after this
viewpoints,
show, I'm one of your
you're
biggest fans, Jack.
talented. You're talented. You're intelligent. You're beautiful. You're the full.
2026 Oscar.
Aw, thank you.
Okay.
Definitely.
Amazing.
All
On
right.
Thank you
that note,
so much,
ladies and
Kayla. I was
gentlemen,
so happy to hear from you, reaching out. Thank you. It's such a pleasant surprise. It's such an honor being here. So wonderful. Like I have so much respect for both of you and what you do. I definitely want to keep in touch. And thank you so much for
thank
having me.
you.
Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with you next week for another issue, another program, give you some fill in on from Bela and Soya at Bela at Soya's World. And we are looking into the possibility of going back on the radio. We'll keep you apprised of the progress on that. Okay.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Hi, thank you.
Right.